Good evening, everyone. My name is Christina Martinez, and I am going to be presenting my older adult oral video presentation. Um, I will tell you that I interviewed my grandmother. We'll use her first name only. Her name is Diane. She was born in 1946. Um, she grew up in Hanover, Pennsylvania, and lived with her grandmother and alcoholic grandfather. And, the further we get into the slides, you'll learn a little bit about why she is the way she is today. As myself, I learned the why she is the way she is today. So it was something that was really good for both of us to sit down and be able to talk about her childhood because it's nothing that she ever wanted to share with anyone. So I felt really privileged for her to agree to do this with me. And, I am looking forward to sharing it with you guys. So I'm going to move right along into Erickson Psychosocial Stage 1. Um, Psychosocial conflict, trust versus mistrust. Um, and that is the first stage of Erickson's psychosocial theory. This occurs within the first year of life. An infant starts to learn whether or not he or she can trust the world. There is much uncertainty there, and the infant looks towards, the parents or the caretaker for solidity, and whether the parent or caretaker is consistent with taking care of her, such as responding to cries by feeding, changing diapers, bathing, cuddling. If this stage is successfully completed, the child will know when a crisis arrives down the road, the child will have hope that no matter what happens, that she can count on people to be there for her. If a child's caretaker or parent is not there for the child, um, then the child will not complete the stage successfully. The child will not trust people in the world and possibly even have fear or anxiety that will follow her into other stages of psychosocial development. Um, Failing this stage, there's no hope. So it's very important to have that consistency of care with that first stage of psychosocial development. Experiences in Diane's life during the first stage, trust versus mistrust. Um, Diane's mother got pregnant at a very young age, and she was a victim of rape, which resulted in the birth of my grandmother. Um, Her mother was in and out of her life because she would run around with her friends and did not really want the responsibility of my grandmother. Um, Father was non-existent because he was, the man who raped her mother, and he was married with other children, and the family was unaware of my grandmother. Um, her main caretaker was her grandmother. Um, and her grandmother took care of her since she was an infant because her mom would run off with a man or friends. Um, my grandmother even stated that her grandmother was the only one that loved her at that time in her life. My great grandfather was an alcoholic, and he was, always drunk or at work and did not pay any attention to her. She barely knew him and lived in the same house for years. The from being unsuccessful in stage 1, she brought all of that into the rest of the stages of her life. And it was the beginning of her feeling abandoned. Um, to this day, she is still working through being abandoned by her mother and, grandpa not even acknowledging her mere existence. Some challenges that were related to stage one for her. She didn't trust many people except for grandma, because grandma was the one that was always there. So, that was who she was close to. She was afraid to get close to anyone or ask anyone for any help because of her trust issues and feeling abandoned. Um, she, Growing up and being unsuccessful in this stage, it inhibited Diane to ask anyone for help or even talk with someone about her problems because, again, she did not trust that anyone loved her. Diane became selfish later on in life financially because she did not feel secure in the world. She was a loner and would have rather been by herself so she wouldn't have to share or get close to anyone because of her pain from feeling abandoned and let down as a child. When Diane finally met George, which was my grandfather, she ended up marrying him, which was hard because she did not want to get hurt. And, then of course he ended up cheating with her sister, and, her and her sister were very close. And, she had trust issues thereafter because, her sister was close to her husband. They both kind of left her and abandoned her yet again in her life. Um, Being selfish is one of the things that Diane has been working on her whole entire life. Being a mother, she stated herself that she was not very good at being a mother because, she was never really mothered herself. Her grandmother did take care of her, but she was not really around because she had to work. She worked when Diane was a child because of needing to run the household because grandpa was an alcoholic. Um, my Nan was not one to keep us when we were little. Staying with Nan was not really an option. She wanted to come and go as she pleases and not have her life interrupted by kids. Something in me still says that, it was a challenge for her to get close to us when we were little because she was so afraid that, we would either abandon her or hurt her in some type of way. So, um, let's see. Let's look at success related to stage one. She had some successes because of being unsuccessful in the first stage of psychosocial development. Um, Diane never really relied on anyone for finances. She took care of herself, her son, and later on in life, my grandmother even bought us clothes for school and whatever we needed for school because, um, she just didn't want us to have to go through what she went through as a child of being made fun of because she doesn't have the cool clothes. And, I didn't know this until now, but that's the reason why she did that for us. So, I kind of understood why she always bought us like the brand name clothes and nice shoes, made sure we had a coat and, all of the necessities. And, she did that up until we were all old enough to get employment, and then she became selfish again. Um, but extremely independent. She bought her own cars, paid for her own vacations. She's a jewelry lover, so she, bought herself tons of jewelry. She's not a very sensitive person. I have only seen her cry a handful of times, and one of them being when her grandmother passed. And Her grandmother passed in 1968. So during that year, she had a lot going on. 1968, she got divorced and grandmother passed. So, that was pretty devastating, losing her husband at the same time of losing the person who cared for her whole life. Um, Diane has only met her father one time. She has another sister besides the one that um, took her husband from her for that little bit of time. And she tracked her down a few years ago, and she's close to her sister. Her sister doesn't live close to her, so they only get to see each other maybe twice a year. Her sister will come down and spend a week or something, and I think Diane would probably rather have that than a very close relationship because she's not too good at, the relationship or social things. Um, She stated that she just wished that one of her sisters would have been there when she was a little child because of feeling so alone. Moving on to the next slide, psychosocial crisis resolution. Um, Trust versus mistrust. In stage one, if, as I said before, if a child is successful in this stage, he or she will have trust in the world. Success in this stage leads to hope. Um, if a child is unsuccessful in this stage, he or she will be untrusting of the world and develop fear. This is a very important stage because it is so crucial for the rest of the stages. For example, if a child is successful in this stage, the child will develop hope and will, trust other people to be there for him or her. If a child is unsuccessful, he or she will not trust others, and it could affect their social relationships down the road. Moving on to psychosocial crisis resolution. Um, Diane grew up in a very poor white American family. She went to a Catholic church, but she did not really connect with a God or spirituality. She was made fun of at school because of being so poor. Again, I just discussed this in the previous slide, and having clothes that were just not cool. Um, Being a female had something to do with it because back then, it was pretty obvious that men made more money than women. And with her grandfather being an alcoholic and missing work, funds were low within the household. Um, Diane stated that she has always had food in her belly. She never went hungry as a child. And, she had to quit school to get a job so she could help grandma out financially because of grandpa, missing work and being drunk all the time. Um, Diane's biopsychosocial factor that has facilitated the resolution to the psychosocial crisis are that she became, the financially dependent person because she did not want to suffer. Um, she worked hard and she made good money because she learned from a young age that she had to take care of herself and not to rely on anybody else. Um, her spirituality, she didn't really have much of that because she felt as if God even abandoned her as a child. And, she just is, and she's still working on that to this day. She worked as a bar manager for many years, and she ended up developing hope and drive despite being unsuccessful in the many stages of the psychosocial development process. She did not have a problem with her race and was proud of her culture because she still follows her grandmother's traditions. She also has never allowed herself to be with a man who drank excessively. Um, she continued to work until her aging just wouldn't allow her to do it anymore.